Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Hey.
Okay. So, to begin, I would like to acknowledge the First Nations and traditional owners of the land I'm broadcasting from, the Wurundjeri and Boonwurrung people of the Kulin Nation. I pay respects to their elders past and present, and to the elders of the lands this recording might reach. Welcome, everyone, to Owning the Story. My name is DM Nguyen, and I'm the Associate Producer here at the Emerging Writers Festival. I am joining in to introduce the session and the wonderful writers we have here today. So this is Owning the Story. Unfortunately, Rafeif Ismail couldn't make it to the panel, so it's just Alexander Pohe and Beau Winden. So this is Owning the Story, and it'll be an in-conversation about the importance of own story narratives, what it means to write own stories, own voices stories, and everything that is important about diversity and inclusive stories in the publishing industry. So first off, we have Beau Winden, who is a neurodivergent Wiradjuri writer based in Naarm. He writes quirky stories about quirky people with focus on YA fiction. In 2020, he was awarded an EWF at-home residency and a Verona Fellowship for 2021. You can read his work in Griffith Review, Rabbit, and Untitled, and follow him on social media at whoisbeauwinden. If you see him out in the wild, approach with caution and some form of chalk orange treat. I don't have any chalk orange treat today, and I'm sorry about that.
That's right. My
And we also have Alexander Tupohi, who is a married trans man living on Wajunga land. Alexander is an editor at Entangled Publishing. He also writes prose, poetry, and book reviews. His work has been published for Centre for Stories in their anthology To Hold the Clouds, as well as Jed Press, Portside Review, and Ramble Books and Games. So Alexander and Beau will give a reading, and then we will proceed to a discussion on own voice narratives. And I will leave, but I will come back for during the question times to facilitate that. So take it away.
Excellent.
Hi, everyone. I'm going to start with the reading. I'm Alexander Pohe, of course. I would like to start by acknowledging that I'm presenting from Wajak Noongar land and pay my respects to elders past, present, and emerging. I'll be reading 3 poems to begin with, and they're all sort of trans related. And I'll have a little chat about them after. Okay, this is Forest Hills and Hidden Valleys. I first dreamt of the forest on a moonless night. Branches cupped pockets of sunlight. All around me, white, pink, and blue petals fell. Upon waking, I found the petals scattered all around. I picked them out of my hair, spitting them from my mouth. They tasted like peaches. I next dreamt of the forest on the waxing moon. A fairy descended in a shower of sparkles. They circled me. Their laughter tickled my face. The fairy was there when I awoke. They were sitting on my windowsill, turning a ring of mine in their hands. My last dream happened when the moon was perched high in the clouds. I walked through the forest at dawn, following the fairy over a carpet of blue, pink, and white petals. They led me to rows of trees made of mirrors. I walked through them, my multiple selves walking with me. In my reflections, I saw myself, flat chest, long hair, genuinely happy. When I woke, I reached down, finding hills when the dream showed a valley. I curled away from the shards of sunlight shattered on my bedsheets to cry. The next one is A Deadly Beauty. It's a little bit less emo, but kind of like has some dark or like emo undertones. Okay, A Deadly Beauty. 3 drops of blood ripple across the bath. A man with scarlet eyes breaks the surface, sloshing water onto the tiled floor. He looks the same as before. His long black hair floats around his shoulders. His indigo tail dips into the portal. From between pointed teeth, he sings. Once you fall, you cannot leave. Sink to float, but never grieve. For what is lost can be found. Hope to death that you won't drown. He takes my hand, dipping it into the warm water. The tiles become translucent, showing an underwater city. His scarlet eyes stare up into mine. They hold the promise of a new future. The answer passes from my skin to his. Petals circle round my ankles, waist, neck. As the water level rises, I take a deep breath. His arms wrap around me. We dive, passing from bathroom to portal to ocean. As he swims, my legs fuse into a tail. My hands become webbed, and when he sings, I join. Once you fall, you cannot leave. Sing to float, but never grieve. For what is lost can be found. Hope to death that you won't drown. The last poem is called Sunken Things. Light from veiled moon cast a dull shine on the lake, revealing a lone form floating there. The water laps at their cheeks, chin, forehead, their proud nose jutting up like a sail. The long tendrils of their hair sink beneath them, thick threads brushing the sand below, swaying with the undercurrents. Their white dress clings to their body, the weight of it sinking the still person. They exhale. Items rise towards the sky, breaking the surface. An open trunk is nearest. The 12 dresses held within tangle into rope. Further away the carriage, overturned, wheels spinning lazily in the breeze. Further still the diary, spine cracked open, letters peel away from pages, floating up and away like dandelions. With an inhale, their items are sealed beneath layers of water, joining them in things. Shoes, a witch's broom, broken cutlery, a glowing key, hairpins, all the lost and discarded pieces. They reach up, cupping the clouds, washing it over their face. At last, they sink. Water spiders over their face, flooding every dip, a veil of water fractured by moonlight. Beneath the hushed waves, whispered secrets overlap with curses and unrequited desires. Deep within, a voice can be heard. The lake says, not yet. The figure rises towards the moonlight. A rush of water strips away every stitch of white, remaking their soul's soft flesh gown anew, giving them new threads, pants, shirt, a jacket, imprinting gentle words in their blood. The man emerges from the water, pushed upright and onto the shore by a curling wave. His horse trots to him, nostrils flaring, anxious to depart. The lake is still, its murky depths concealing all but the faint voice saying, not yet. The horse carries the man away, drum of hooves clearing the sky of clouds, moon's unblinking eye giving clarity. She watches over the man on his journey. He rides through the night, shedding each droplet of water, leaving a trail of stones in his wake. His long hair whips around behind him, unfettered and free. And that's my poetry. Thank
Gorgeous.
you.
Absolutely gorgeous stuff. I love how it's like a narrative, but you can very clearly tell the subtext beneath it.
Yeah, I sort of like, because I started with writing like, YA, my background is in like narrative. So I sort of bring the narrative to the poetry. And it's just sort of like a way for me to sort of talk about things relating to my life and what's going on without being like too autobiographical. So it can like, I'm not exactly like the man floating like beneath the lake and then being transformed in like this glorious, watery like rebirth. But it's sort of like sometimes can feel like that, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And I think that's kind of like, I don't know, it would be like the ideal way for it to actually play out. It's like, a kind of, wish fulfillment in a way of like, oh, this would be a beautiful kind of experience to go through, because this is how it's playing out, I guess, mentally or emotionally for you?
Yeah, definitely. Like, it's sort of like my poems sort of like piece themselves together as I'm going through things. So like I had an image of someone in a lake, and then as my life continues, like I connected it together with another. Like I was driving and I saw this like trolley emerge out of the darkness with when the light hit it, when the car light hit it, and it's sort of like all the pieces in my mind like fell together. Yeah.
So when you go into writing these poems, it's usually, I guess, it's inspired by obviously a feeling or something that you want to explore, and then you kind of map these thoughts or like I guess moments of imagination onto that, or
Yeah, sort of. It's very like intuitive. Like I have a feeling, I have an image. I sort of put the feelings and the images together, and the poem sort of like the last one that I wrote, Sunken Things. It sort of just like fell together as my life was like happening. Like I had one thread, and as things happened, I just sort of kept pulling and pulling, and yeah, it happened.
It's a really I think it was just a really beautiful way to to describe your experiences through through these narratives.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Did you want to read your work next?
Oh,
I wouldn't say poetry.
yeah. I'll do my reading next. So I'm going to read an extract from a YA fantasy novel that I've been working on for a while now. I'll just launch into it, and then I guess I will discuss the work afterwards.
Yeah.
I'm just going to clear my throat first.
Yeah, go. Gotta hydrate.
Yep. Okay. Subaru Heartbreak's first rule of success is if you're about to do anything important, make sure you look like a star while doing it. That's why I spent hours the night before flicking through my collector's edition of Heartbreak's retirement fanzine, carefully examining every one of his pictures. What makes a star? I had my assumptions, but he had never come out and said exactly what it was, which made me doubt that I had understood his perception of star correctly. It took me weeks to decide on what look of his best exemplified star. But then I also wanted to make sure that it didn't look like I was trying too hard. Nobody likes someone that tries too hard. So if I looked like too much of a star, then I'd probably come across like a tryhard. The outfit I would wear was a complex math problem. I even bought an old-fashioned pinboard so I could experiment with possible looks. Red string and cut-up pictures from expendable magazines littered the board from my experimentation. Ashley used to joke I should do that, and now that she hates me, I actually have, and I can't even tell her. After hours of trialing different outfits, I finally landed on one I liked, inspired by the photo of Heartbreak issuing the challenge for his first World Championship contest. My favorite pair of tattered black jeans and the Love Streak Heartbreak t-shirt Mum had got me for my 15th birthday. Something casual and comfortable, but stylish, I think. The mirror on the back of my bedroom door and I had a love-hate relationship. Sometimes I'd have extreme bursts of confidence, where I thought it was only a matter of time before everyone realized how cool I was. Other times I had to cover it with a bathrobe because the sight of myself made me nauseous. I must have been tired the night before, because when I finally decided on this outfit, because it was close, but not quite there. 8:20 a.m. Shoot. I had 10 minutes until time to brush my teeth. If I missed that, then I'd have to wait for 8:45, and that would make me late. Flinging open my bottom drawer, I shuffled through it in search for an outfit fix. When I finally found what I was looking for, I straightened up too fast and had to reach for the wall to balance myself. The TV caught my eye. An underrated craft battle from Echo featuring Subaru Heartbreak vs. Finton Snicket played on it for the 21st morning in a row. It was my go-to motivation viewing. If I needed inspiration, The match that put heartbreak on the map never failed to pump me up. I stood, transfixed on the greatest mood stabilizer my mum had ever got me, watching heartbreak write into his iconic red and black notebook. Within seconds, 2 crimson wolves leapt from the page and into reality. The camera pulled out as the wolves charged towards Snicket, a regular cinematic feature during Heartbreak's battles. Snicket pressed his feathered quill to a sheet of paper, and a small wave of silver liquid splashed from the page and washed over Heartbreak's hounds. I will maintain until the day I die, or lose my memories, that if Snicket hadn't disappeared, he could have been something special. 8:26 a.m. Shoot, sugar sticks. Sliding on my Echo brand hoodie, I stepped back in front of the mirror. Did that scream star? Breathe wild, daggy, but cool. You got this. Today is your day. With how I had grown my hair out, I almost looked like a younger version of Heartbreak, which is exactly what I was going for because no one looked cooler than him. And my hair was naturally the same hazelnut. So really, it was a genetic sign I should emulate him. I ran my hands through it to mess it up and then pulled it across my face into a part. Yep, that looked natural. Turning to leave, I spun back to admire my outfit again and rearranged small strands of my hair to get it perfect. Yes, sir, that was the look of someone that didn't care. After getting to the bathroom to brush my teeth just in time, I rushed down the stairs 3 at a time, making sure not to step on any of the stains. Home was old. Everything in this community was old. Who knows how many people had lived here before us? Who knows what those stains could be? Sure, they might just be red wine, like my mum said, but they could also be blood from a previous tenant that cut off his pinky in a fit of panic because he couldn't get it clean. You never know. Mum had left a lovely note of encouragement on the kitchen bench, along with a slice of banana bread, my favorite form of bread, and banana, which I ate so fast I almost choked on. Then I grabbed my backpack and ran for the front door, stopping only to pet the ceramic pig my father had left behind. I told Mr. Eagles to wish me luck as I rushed outside, still coughing up banana bread as I ran. Then in a panic, I rushed back to the door to check I had locked it. Then checked another 2 times to be safe. It didn't quite feel right, so I opened the door, stepped inside, then walked out again and made sure it was locked a further 2 times. Dr. Greenhill wouldn't be happy if he knew I had let that happen. He'd lecture me about my disordered alphabet and tell me how I need to focus on self-control, or the alphabet could crush me. And I'll stop there.
Honestly, I could keep listening to that. That was really good. Well done.
Thank you. Yeah, so that's a story that I've been working on where I'm a big fan of fantasy and science fiction, but I never see, I guess characters like myself in that sense, like the hero. Like I'm autistic, right? I prefer to use the label neurodivergent because it sounds kind of heroic in itself. But I don't think in my entire life I've read a fantasy story or like anything where the main hero is autistic. And there's a lot of good fiction out there now featuring autistic characters, own voices ones as well. But it all seems to be contemporary fiction. And, I always really wanted to see a character like myself that has my thought process and runs through my worries and my fixations and stuff. And I really wanted to always wanted to, read a character like that, gain powers and become the hero and survive in like this fantasy world. And because I can't, haven't been able to find anything like that, eventually I was just like, well, I guess I better write it myself.
Yeah, I think that there can be like, and that's not bad when it's from the writer doing it from their own, like what they want to write. But I think there can be like a tendency in Australian like YA to go more contemporary and talk about, this is the experience of this type of person, and this is something that happens to them, and like this is how they deal with that. And like books like The Boy from the Mish do that really, really well, and everyone should read it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like I completely understand that desire to not explore like identities and ideas even that way, like, and instead go to more towards fantasy and like superheroes, because like I grew up watching X-Men, like Wolverine, X-Men 1, that was my jam.
Yes.
For so long. So I totally like understand that, and I would like to see more of that, because it's like, yes, like those sort of own voices contemporary books are needed, but it's like that's not the only way that I personally want to tell my story, if that makes sense. No,
100%. And like I do I apologize if it sounded like I was like talking down on these stories, because I'm a big fan of them. But like you, I grew up on, the superhero stories, and like, all of these big fantasy like landscapes and worlds that I wanted to live in, because I wasn't quite satisfied with my own. And especially in, Australian fiction, they don't, I guess like fantasy and genre isn't as big here, or as widely published as it should be. And most fantasy and stuff that we get seems to be imported from the US. But not being able to see, those kind of neurodivergent characters, or really like any kind of diverse or marginalized characters as the protagonist, it's such a rare thing. When I actually started writing this book, in my head, I was like, I want to write like a neurotypical character, because if I don't write a neurotypical character, then no one would ever want to read this book, because who would believe that someone like me could, be a hero and like use magic and all this, because it's not something that I had ever been exposed to. And it wasn't until someone was reading it that was like, I really like how you've put the character on the spectrum like you. And I was like, oh, well, it's actually meant to be, I didn't intend for him to be here on the spectrum. And they ended up pushing me into like leaning into that, despite, I guess, my concerns on how probable it is that something like that could actually be published in the Australian publishing landscape.
Yeah, and I think that's really good, because it's like, I think, well, I don't know if it's like this in your story, but it's like that's a part of the character, but you're not saying I'm telling like this, like I'm not telling like the everyday thing. I'm just like, we want to be like, well, I like writing like, like I grew up with like Interview with a Vampire and like Avengers, and like, they're like not being like they're not being like, oh, okay, I'm white, let's talk about my whiteness and dissect it, and like talk about my troubles with it, and like racism and stuff, and like how I'm handling it in my family. That it's like, I'm a superhero, I have like fire powers or like lightning powers or something like that, and that's really cool, and this is a part of like my story, but it's not like the only thing, if that makes sense.
And like I think that's a problem I have with how the publishing industry, when it looks at marginalized authors and writers, that there's an expectation that if you're going to write something, it has to be focusing on your marginalization and all about that. And if you kind of go away from that, it's like it's almost like it wouldn't quite tick the boxes that their diversity quota, or whatever, because
Yeah.
it's not entirely like, focused, circling around your marginalization.
Yeah, sorry, I have a dog. I have a dog and she's seen something. But yeah, and I think like it's like good to go outside of that as well as inside of it, because it's like, I think something that we touched on was like before we started was like looking at like a way that publishers could like look after writers, like how people who were like trying to get stories from us can look after us. And I think one of the ways that it could be was like to not have this expectation to like keep on like making us sort of like regurgitating all of this trauma and all of this stuff and all of this expectation about identities like over and over again, because I find that to be like, it can be really cathartic, but like once the work is out there, once it's done, and once everyone's like, this is amazing, I've learned a lot, then it's like, how are you coping with that as an artist? Like how are you processing like the not only writing of your trauma, but also having it out there and having people comment on it? Like I think that can be really difficult. Like, yeah, I don't know your thoughts on this topic. So
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I had an incident quite recently, actually, where I wrote a spoken word poem that was dealing with my experience with like being autistic and having like meltdowns in public, and the gaze that can come from people that aren't used to seeing an autistic person like going through something like that. And it was quite a difficult thing to write and work on. And then once I finished it and having to like share it with others, and when you receive that kind of feedback, that's like it's not just feedback on the work, but it feels like it's feedback entirely on your identity, and not everyone will handle it with the required amount of care needed. So when it's already, you're already dealing with what might be something that's quite traumatic for you. I think what I'm getting at here is like the expectation that if you're an own voice's author, that expectation to that you need to write exactly about like all of the hard bits and all of the things that are going to emotionally reach out and like punch the the reader in the face. It can be difficult for the writer.
yeah, it can be. And like sometimes I think that readers, especially like people outside of like your own communities, sometimes they need like to be grabbed by the shoulders and just be like, this is how it is. You need to really look at it, and you can't look away. So like, but for the writer, that process of opening like you said is really difficult. And like I don't know your thoughts on this, but it's like, how do publishers like cater to us, and like how would you like want to be taken care of as a writer? It's like that's producing this work, that's producing like not all the time maybe, but when you feel like you need to, or when you do it, like how would you want to be like taken care of?
Yeah, this is it's an interesting thing because one thing I guess worry about that kind of gets on my nerves is how it feels like a lot of publishers have their diversity quota, or like they'll publish like one trans book a year, or one autism book a year, or one there's only like a certain number of books that they'll put out, which to me already feels that like I feel like if I was going to be published by someone, I would want to, kind of see similar, writers with a similar experience to me that have worked with them. So I know how that is, and I know, I can be sure that I'm not just kind of being exploited for them to, hit their quota. But then in the same sense, it's like, you want to get published and stuff. So there's a certain point where you just, have to eat the bread and like it for what it is. But I'm
banana bread.
The banana bread, yeah, just like it for what it is. I feel like with any publisher, I'd be very upfront about about my connection to the work, and it's interesting. I'm not, and I've thought about it quite a bit, but I don't really think I could give you an answer on how I feel like I would feel comfortable, or like I would know that a publisher is handling me with me and my work with care in that sense. Do you have any thoughts on like what a kind of ideal, like healthy relationship would be between? I mean, because you also you also edit and publish with Entangled, right?
Yeah, I do, and I think sort of like I've been on like both sides of like the fence, so.
Yeah,
I can sort of like, well, this is just my opinion, but I feel like as a writer, what I would want to see going into like a publishing house, because the thing is like, you're like, you have to make yourself look as good as you can to a publisher, but also at the same time, a publisher has to look as good as they can to you as a writer. And I think something that I would look for would be, does the publishing house, like, what do they publish? Like you said, like if they're only putting out like 1 or 2 books by like trans people or like people like disabled people like a year, and all of those are white, then I'd be like, I don't want to publish with you. So like I'd be looking for like, do they publish like trans books? Do they publish people of color? Like what types of books do they publish? And then also look at like what sort of like what are their background? Like if you're publishing like all of these amazing books, but the people who are working for the company, like wherever that may be, are all white, all cis, all straight, all like, super privileged people.
Yeah.
It's like, yes, you can take courses to learn about trans people. You can do like sensitivity stuff for all different types of marginalizations. But it's like, I don't think it's the best look to be like super white or super cis like in your staff, because it's like, I would personally be looking for like an author, not like an author, but like an editor of color or like an agent of color, because I know like, or at least people like there's a lot of like, not like token like 1 or 2 people in the company, but like, a diverse range of people across like this whole, because if you're publishing like diversely, if you're hiring diversely, and if you're keeping like the authors and your staff, then like you're back, like how you're actually like running the company must be well. And like once you're in that sort of thing, I would want to have like, I would want to just be treated like a person, because I feel like sometimes as a writer, you're treated like a machine. You put out a work and like they pat you on the back and say, well done, and then walk away. They're not like, how are you? How are you going? What do you need? Like, I think there was this funny meme that came out that was like, not a meme, but it was like a comic from like the US, and it was like, someone was like drowning and they're like, sorry, can't come into work right now. I'm about to be eaten by a shark. It's like, you don't want to have that sort of like conversation. You just want to be like, you don't want to have to apologize for going through like something. You just want to have that sort of relationship with the publisher, with the agent, with the editor, where you feel like you're being taken care of as a person, where your needs are being met. Like that would be and I'd love to hear like more like writers sort of collaborate on what like they would want out of publishers. Yeah. So that's just my thoughts. Probably a lot.
Yeah. I think there's so many books published every year by like white, cisgendered, straight, able-bodied kind of writers, and it's like it really dominates like the market, and all of those writers are kind of they're always treated or the kind of dominant perception of them by publishers, and like everyone else is all based on like the work that they've produced and stuff, whereas I find a lot of times that when I go to like writing kind of networking things and introducing myself, someone always has to, someone will always kind of point out, oh, he's autistic, or, kind of like pointing out the thing as if it's something that makes me special or stand out, rather than I guess what I'm saying is like, not being treated like like your marginalization is entirely who you are, but also treated like a proper professional writer, just like all of the white, cisgendered, able-bodied kind of people. Don't treat me like the only thing I am is like that tick in your box.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's like you're not a tick box. You're like who you are, like your identities sort of like, well, from my point of view, sort of like inform how you are and like what you need. But like, how is that any like, how is like asking like, oh, I need like my name to be here. I need my pronouns to be here. I need like certain accommodations. How is that asking that different from like anyone else who's like, I need my name, I need my pronouns, I need these accommodations? That why are we special because we have these marginalizations that sort of like put an arrow on our head? Like
yeah. And it's not about the industry having, I guess, less of those kind of those white, cisgendered, straight authors and everything. It's just about the industry opening up and having more diverse voices. It's not about like lessening one thing, but about raising the other, to have like a lot more of it, I think. And especially like working behind the scenes, like it would be nice if there were if you could get something published and it's going to be worked on and edited by someone that has your shared experience, rather than someone that's going in blind, or even worse, going off stereotypes that they've been made to believe because of so many authors and writers and people that have written about experiences like ours without having lived that experience. So they kind of like take these shots in the dark at like, well, this is how it must be. And, because they get that kind of marketing machine behind them, because they're privileged, this stuff comes into, into the community, and all of a sudden it affects how people with those lived experiences are actually viewed.
Yeah, because it's like when you're sort of edited in a way where you have to like explain yourself, you have to be like, oh, yes, this character does use like multiple pronouns and that's a thing, or, stuff like that. It's like Rafeif, who is unfortunately not here, sent in a few like things, and they said like, we talk about own voices and inclusion, but like inclusion for who exactly? and like to what system? Like when you're like, I guess what I'm trying to say is like when you only have these sort of things like in place, like, you know, white writers, cis writers, white authors, not editors, cis editors, like who are you including like in the industry? Who like do you actually want, like who are you accommodating for? Yeah.
Another thing we spoke about in email before the event that I think would be good to touch on was on people writing a voice that isn't their own, and if they should or shouldn't, and you know, if there is room for it, then what should they do to you know, be able to kind of cover that?
Well, I would say first and foremost, like without trying to be incredibly harsh or mean or cruel, that sometimes like when you're thinking about, oh, you're cis, you want to write about a trans character, this would be a really interesting topic. Think about, am I the right person to tell the story? Am I taking up space? Do I like even need to go here? I think especially with like, I don't know if you feel the same, but with like Indigenous stories, sometimes it's like, no, if you're outside of these communities, you cannot write it, and you'll never like, well, you shouldn't write it. And if you feel like you should, if you feel like you have to, it's like, why do you feel like you have the authority to like be like a sort of like a story cannibal, take people's stories, eat them up, and then like you're the one who's getting the accolades. You're the one who is like sort of put above like community and culture and protocol. Like I think, I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I feel like, you know, in most cases when I like the word used for it, cannibalize. You know, when writers cannibalize other people's stories and experiences, it's mainly for it feels like it's mainly a profit thing, and it's like you know, they've kind of taken a piece of like your culture and a piece of you, because they feel like they can use it to like, you know, pivot themselves into award talk, or in, you know, into these accolades and stuff. So yeah, I feel like in you know, most cases, 99% of cases, that you just shouldn't write about like a marginalized experience that isn't your own. And if for some reason you are, then you need to have a really long, hard think about why it is that you need to tell the story. Why do you need to tell it? Because unless the reason's really fucking good, then just don't.
Yeah, exactly. It's like it sort of speaks to a certain level of like self-importance and like me sort of attitude. And it just like, okay, so I'm going to bring in a Disney, but like Moana, while being really, really good, it's sort of like you're taking a lot of different types of things and smashing them together. You're not thinking about how this will affect the communities like that are involved, what like conversations will be had after, like what the effects of it will be, like the big Disney resort that they built somewhere in like Hawaii that like pushed all these people off their lands. You're not thinking of like the after effects. You're just sort of thinking like, this is a me thing. So yeah. And it's like, if you do want to do that, then like, you know, there's certain like steps that you have to take, because like, I don't know about you, but like as a writer, you're thinking like, or that are part of these communities, you're thinking like, how am I going to get it right? Like I'm part of, I live this every day. How am I going to get it right? If you're thinking all these deep questions that maybe people outside of it wouldn't think, like how people outside of that wouldn't even know where to start, wouldn't even know the right questions, even be able to get it right.
No, that's totally it. You know, and it's funny how it's like the own voices author that seem to have that worry more and like that pressure more because you know, our stories aren't I guess as easily shared, that it feels like there's so much pressure for you to like get it absolutely right. And it can be impossible because you know, even your experience, you know, in um with your culture and you know, with what you've lived through is going to be different to someone else with the exact same kind of thing. But yet for some reason it's still, you know, us that feels the pressure when you have the you know, kind of privileged upper middle class people that will go out there and just like take the story and not have any of that concern besides how can I get away with this.
Yeah, it's just baffling to me. It can be a bit baffling. Yeah, to why people would do that, because it's like, I remember, without saying the name of the book, this book came out and it was like the press around it was like, oh, we know that it's going to have backlash. We know that these communities are going to be affected. We've done all this research. Like, if that's your marketing plan, if that's your stance as an author and as a publisher, then is that truly ethical to have that approach? Like, is that correct? Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah. And you know, if they wanted to publish a book like that, you know, why publish it from, you know, this privileged point of view and not go, you know, directly to the source and someone that can, you know, bring authenticity to it.
And why not go one step further, not write it at all, and just like support these writers who are trying to do the work, you know, who are actually like, instead of being like, okay, I have to be the one to write it, and be like, no, I can do things to support, like, even without you waving your flag and saying, yes, I'm an ally or I'm a supporter of this community, you can do things to support, you know, writers, even if they're just your friends, and you're like, friend, do you have anything, like, you know, I heard you wanted to, and you told me that you wanted to do this. How can I help you with it? Like, send it to me when it's done. Like, I'll read over it. I'll help you. Like, how can you as an individual help instead of taking up space and like cannibalizing, as we said, these stories? Yeah.
Yeah, no, 100%. So what are some of your favorite own voices stories that you've read recently?
Well, not looking at the book stack behind me. Flock is a really good one, like edited by Alan Van Nerven. Such a good anthology, so many different like point of views, so many different like takes. I just like I sort of wish that I had more time because I reviewed it for Kill Your Darlings, and I wish I had more time to just like process it, because it's sort of like you're getting all of this different stuff, and at the end you're sort of like, it's not like now I have to process all of this, but in a good way, because sometimes it's like I said, like, you need to be sort of like sort of like shaken up a little bit, like have a little bit of fire lit underneath you. I'll also mention Cemetery Boys, which I really, really enjoyed, by Aidan Thomas. It is there, and it is amazing, and it's probably one of the first times where I actually saw like what we're talking about, the combination of having like a trans guy in there with like a cool like adventure, like it's like a murder mystery set during the Day of the Dead, and like, you know, you sort of get everything at once. You get like the adventure, you get like, you know, the guy, the trans guy, blushing about his like ghost crush. Like, you know,
more stories like that.
Yes. What were any books that you liked, own voices or not?
Well, the Boy from the Mish that came out this year is You got it back there?
Yeah.
Just one of the most gorgeous reads I've had in so long. And one thing I liked that brings it to how we were talking about that kind of pressure to get it right, even though we're writing about our own experience. Is that in the back of that book there's the note from the author where he mentions about it just being his experience and stuff. Which I think is interesting in itself, really coming back to that, to the fact that an Own Voices author has the level of respect, to include something like that. Whereas, if it was a white straight author, writing that kind of story, something like that would most likely be omitted. Another book I really enjoyed that came out last year is Peter Lyer's Rating Normal, about a young autistic girl that goes away to the snow, and this like really cute queer romance ensues. I need to I'll need to read that Cemetery Boys, because that sounds fantastic. And that's what I want, is more like genre fiction that includes the exploration and development of identity, along with just something cool and fun.
Yeah, and like after this I can definitely like drop a few recs like on Twitter at Alec Pohe. If anyone's interested, because I love reading like YA fantasy, where it's like, yes, you have like the inspiration is like someone's culture, someone's like that they're trans, but also you have these different like aspects like all like put together. I see that we have a question.
Yes, from Sarah Jane. Where do you see progress towards a better industry today?
That's a good question. Where do you see progress towards a better industry today? I think you go.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, I feel like the Own Voices hashtag was a really good kind of starting point for the discussion of more diverse stories. But the problem is that the industry as a whole fell back on that on that hashtag so much that that it wasn't really taken for what it should have been, which was the first step towards actually incorporating more Own Voices stories. Instead, it just became kind of like this one size fits all kind of marketing thing. And it's like, okay, well, we've got so many Own Voices stories released each year, whereas that Own Voices it covers like so much that it never should have been anything more than a first step towards greater things. But the industry as a whole seems to have just like taken that first step and then just idled there.
Yeah, I saw that We Need Diverse Books, they're even no longer using the term Own Voices, because they said that it has become a catch-all term that can place diverse creators in uncomfortable and unsafe situations. And it's like, maybe people should look at, instead of like the Own Voices term that's created a problem, I think, like you said, the industry, or like you may have said, the industry is the one like with the problem. And like I was saying before, the progress towards like a better industry would be like for publishers to see writers as people first, not their work first. Because like sometimes, like, I don't know, I see like I am like my writing, but at the same time I'm still like a person. Like things happen, and I like I need the same sort of support that like anyone else would, just like maybe slightly different. Yeah.
Yeah, no, totally.
Yeah.
I think oh, hang on, we've got another question here. All right, it's a big one. How do you feel about collaboration? Example, if I had a series in mind with differing main characters per book, if you don't want each main character to be white or straight, could you collab with writers with differing experiences? Or would you still encourage just to not write those stories, do not pursue the series? Oh, interesting. Personally, I think something like that would be an ideal way to kind of help celebrate diverse stories. If you're going to co-write something, and say you don't have that own voices experience, you could always have your character, I guess, being someone closer in line with your experiences, or someone, a character that might not understand the marginalized experience, but have your co-writer kind of taking care of that. And if you're working hand in hand together, I think there's the potential for something really really cool to come from that. And it's a good way to help lift up marginalized writers as well, who can still face that barrier. If you're able to use your privilege to to help, then
I think collaboration would be a good idea, but at the same time, like whether it's a collaboration or not, both or all writers still need to think about, like, because it's very specific. Like, it really depends on like where you're setting it, what the story is about, who the characters are, like, and even like as an own voice as like creator, you still need to think about like like protocols and research, and like showing your like sensitivity readers, like even thinking about sensitivity readers, whether you're in or outside those communities. So I don't know, it's a tricky one because it really depends on the story. And of course, like regardless of what we say, either of us say today, you can truly do whatever you want, but you still have to have all of these questions in your mind and think really, really think deeply about why you're doing this, if you should.
On the topic of sensitivity readers, I think that's something that all publishing houses should employ, for if any kind of story addressing or featuring a marginalized experience is going to be put out, then I feel like that's something that should be on the publisher to ensure happens, that it goes through sensitivity readers to ensure that it can't do any damage.
Yeah, I think that as well. Like, you should have multiple readers, but at the same time, like the fact that you have those people, that they're doing that amazing work, like going through your book, making whatever comments they are specific to the edits, you still need to but you shouldn't be using those people as sort of like, I have gotten these like two people, this one person, this one other person to read my work, and now I can face no criticism whatsoever.
As writers, there's always going to be a level of criticism. Even if you're writing your own experience, like there might be someone with my exact experience that could take issue, or with something I've written about, and that's, I think, something that you need to be prepared for it, when you're writing about your own story.
Yeah, I definitely think so. Like, you need to be prepared for the criticism, but at the same time, it's like, I feel like people critiquing it need to be aware, like, maybe if you're like living outside of like your community, maybe if you're not like have a slightly different experiences, that doesn't make it any less own voices in someone who's, say, like, more like in touch with everything.
Like there's I feel like there's no such thing as not enough. You're never not Aboriginal enough, not autistic enough, not queer enough, or to write about your experience. Because if you don't write about it, then some privileged upper class person is going to jump on and just take it from you. So
yeah, they definitely will. And I think like you just need to, like, I would say to creators that you just need to give yourself that permission to say, yep, I can write the stories, because it says white, like, able-bodied person will probably do it anyway, with or without anyone's permission.
Yeah.
I think that,
Hello.
Yeah.
Thank you, Alexandra and Beau, for sharing your thoughts and opening yourself up and having this conversation, even though I feel like we've had this conversation so many times, right? Like, when will they start listening to us?
Yeah.
But thank you again. I loved what you said about care in this industry, the idea of box ticking and having just not wanting your just be pigeonholed as well. And you just covered a lot of very good points. And I really loved the idea of story cannibal. So yeah, thank you very much for this excellent session. Thank you for everyone tuning in. I hope you've got a lot out of it, because I sure did. And this is the 4th day of Emerging Writers Festival, and we still have so many more amazing events and programs, so please check it out. And I will say thank you again to the two of you. You've been stellar. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Bye. Thanks.